Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of Token Podcast Reviews. I'm your host and sometimes referee, the friendly neighborhood Zach Pearson, and today I'm joined by he whose table tops all others, a one Brian.
Hey Zax, thanks for having me on.
No problem, man. It's very unique and rare to get guests like you, so when I can get them, I definitely appreciate them. So, for the uninitiated, as in those who didn't just read the title, Brian here has done what I thought was essentially impossible and created a Monty Python RPG. So let me just ask you, how did you come up with this concept? That has to be a story in and of itself.
Yeah, kind of a long one, but I'll try to keep it brief. Um, when I was talking to a merch company, a company that represents a lot of famous, mostly bands, about a project that wasn't this, and we got fairly far down the road, and it turned out that project wasn't going to happen. And it was disappointing, but kind of as a consolation, the rep I was talking to said, well, this one isn't going to happen, but here's our client roster, have a look. And if there's anything else that looks interesting, let me know. And we looked down and there was Monty Python sitting there. And my brother co-wrote this with me, have been Python fans and have been playing role-playing games together for 30 years, I guess, or more like 35 probably, probably getting up close to 40. So as soon as I saw that, my jaw kind of dropped, and I asked my contact, like, is Python possible? I mean, I see them on here, and they said, yeah, actually, they're looking for projects. They're pretty easy to work with, and so that's definitely doable. So that seemed like a great opportunity. It seemed like kind of a dream project for my brother and me, because we're so much of our kind of relationship and vernacular and everything else has been influenced and kind of determined by Python's catalog of work and our shared love of that and role-playing games. So it was kind of it was kind of a fortuitous moment that suddenly here's this license that seems to be available for this kind of thing. But then going from there to actually signing the license and landing it, I guess, was a whole ordeal in and of itself, because when it comes to tabletop role-playing games, if you're dealing with people who aren't hobbyists, who aren't into it already, there's, as you well know, there's a lot of kind of onboarding you have to do and explaining what this thing actually is and how it works. And when it comes to Python management, explaining how the canonical elements would be treated. How would they be used? Are we going to be just taking scenes and lines from their catalog and reproducing them, and what does that look like? And of course, that wasn't our intent at all, but there were a lot of those kind of ground rule setting sessions and sort of explanatory sessions and meetings that we had to have before they were willing to, I guess, trust us enough and let us have a go.
Not gonna lie, one day I would love to hear the long version because that is very fascinating. It sounds like you almost went down a similar road I had to go down before I got into when I got into media adaptation. Oh my God. I would like to say I got a lot of rejections. Rejection sounds very noble. No, no, no. I got a lot of, oh yes, this looks like fun. Yeah, let's follow up. And then I don't hear from somebody for 8 months. That's not hyperbole, by the way.
Yeah, I mean it it can be a real roller coaster, no doubt.
Yeah. The stories I could tell you about people who wanted to make video games and then magically forgot after they paid people. All right, so excuse me. Second question: is this your first tabletop RPG, or have you made any other games we should know about?
This would be the third. The first one was a fantasy setting called Rackham Vale, and it is based on the artwork of a famous British illustrator from the early 20th century named Arthur Rackham. And most people who like things like fantasy stuff will know his work, even if you don't know his name. His style is iconic and very recognizable. So my brother and I, same brother that I wrote this one with, created a fantasy setting using that artwork, all of which is in the public domain, drawing on the characters he created, and we did that. That book is now in, I think, its fifth printing. We did it initially as part of Zine Quest, but it got a lot bigger than a zine very quickly, so it turned out to be more like a 200-page book. And then we did a deluxe edition hardcover, full color version as well. So that was the first thing I did, and then the next one was also a licensed project, and this one is based on the work of Greg Broadmoor, who is one of the lead designers at Weta Workshop, which is a big special effects studio in New Zealand that did all the Lord of the Rings movies and the kind of any big special effects heavy movie you can think of. It's probably gone through them. And this guy Greg had done a graphic novel, created a kind of world based on ray guns and these graphic novels he'd written around them. And I was a fan of that, and I reached out, and he said he was himself or at least used to be, a very active tabletop role-playing game enthusiast, and so he was very willing to see where this would go. And so we signed that license, and that became Dr. Gordbort's Scientific Adventure Violence, which published early 2024. And that was with Exalted Funeral, who's also the publisher of Monty Python's co-curricular medieval reenactment program.
That is definitely interesting. I would not expect those chains to be linked, as my grandma used to say. All right. Well, so I guess now is the part where we can go into a little bit of a more technical answer. So you mentioned you go through a third party who just has access to these people, but what was the licensing process like? Like meeting them for the first time, if you even met them, and talking to the people. Like, what was the pipeline for this development?
Yeah, so there's a company called Bravado that is mainly a merchandise and brand licensing agency, and they represent lots of artists, including Monty Python. And so the talks sort of began with them, and then eventually it moved up to Python management. And the manager of Python is Holly Gilliam, who is Terry Gilliam's daughter. And she was, from the beginning, very, very enthusiastic and supportive. Even if she didn't fully understand what it is we were pitching, she was very open to hearing more about it and discussing what it would look like, and just generally very, very positive and supportive of the idea. And so it still took quite a bit of time to sort of go from those initial conversations to actually being ready to sign the license. Just lots of different conversations to be had, and different kind of market research to provide, and the proposal, and there was a lot of back and forth. I guess took about a year and a half, but then once we signed and were kind of in touch directly with management, and discussing the ideas, and then actually running all of our running the copy and the art that we were commissioning by her, she was great. I mean, she was just very supportive and very interested to see how it works, and she laughed a lot and at our ideas, which was good, because she's the caretaker of all things Python. And so it was very, she was just a great licensor to work with, and continues to be very supportive as we approach the street date, which is March 5th. And she had a lot of good insight and feedback, and eventually, just it seemed like we sort of earned her trust once she saw enough of what we'd written and what our ideas were, and I think she could tell how much how well we knew the content and how much we love it, and this was really um, a a labor of love for us. This was a passion project. I think we earned her trust, and that we were going to do everything we could to present this content in its best possible light, and to really try and take care of the brand as much as she was, because it means a lot to us as well.
So it sounds like you were fortunate enough to have just caught lightning in the bottle. And man, when you catch it, you catch it. But I'm also not going to act like, you didn't have some previous successes. So, hey, I'm glad you and your brother know what you're doing. Just shoot for the stars, man.
Well, yeah, I mean, we were really fortunate. The fact that the licensor was willing to kind of take a chance on me, and it's not like I had a long track of dozens of successful tabletop RPG projects that I could point to. I was, relatively unknown designer at that point, and I mean, still am. It's not like I'm, have a whole ton of successes, and our publisher too, Exalted Funeral. They're well known in the kind of indie space of tabletop role playing games, but they're not sort of big brand name, mainstream brand name. And the fact that the licensor was kind of willing to take a chance on me and Exalted, and this idea was still is kind of surprising to me at times, but I'm very grateful that they said yes.
Yeah, the minute you can get to a convention, man, I hope you guys market the hell out of this, because there are a lot of people I know who would even attempt to try a tabletop RPG just if they saw a name that they recognized. Um, and Monty Python definitely pulls people. I still watch it on Netflix. The Netflix version is the worst version I've ever seen in my life. Not that there's anything wrong with it graphically. There's a high pitched humming noise that goes through almost all the movies. They didn't even try to do any touch up, remastering, nothing. Moving on though. Speaking of Pythons, I would be remiss if I didn't ask, man. It's gonna go without saying. Come on now. What's your favorite Python flick?
Well, movie, tough. I think their best film is probably Life of Brian, in terms of just what they set out to do and the execution of it. I just think they were really at the top of their game, all of them, for that one. I think my personal favorite though is still Grail, just because it's the first one I saw. I was familiar with Flying Circus, with the television show, but it was hard to get at, back when I was growing up. I mean, you could catch it sometimes on MTV late at night, but it was elusive. It was hard to get your hands on. But Holy Grail, we could just go down to Blockbuster and rent that thing. So once we did that for the first time, we did it repeatedly, and just that one is very nostalgic for me, and so I think if I had to choose a favorite, it would be Holy Grail. Even though if I had to die on a hill as to what their best work is, it would probably be Life of Brian.
All right, moving
Uh,
on. Um, so for the uninitiated, which is practically anyone who's going to possibly have an interest in it, uh, how does the gameplay system work for a Monty Python tabletop RPG? What's a traditional?
well, we went for the goal was to have a kind of rules light system that focused on um, communal storytelling and creativity at the table. And of course, we needed to make sure we had room for a lot of the surrealistic and strange assets, strange features of Python that make it feel Python-esque. All the fourth wall breaking and the satire and the anachronisms and all the other things that make Python feel Python. And so when it comes to player characters, or in this system they're called participant characters, but when it comes to PCs, I mean, you have 5 basic traits, and what's unusual maybe about the traits in this system is that they aren't static. You don't roll your intelligence at the beginning of the game, and that's the intelligence you're going to have forever. Whatever your rating is in each one of your 5 traits, that can change throughout the game, and actually does change quite often. So if you ever max a die roll, you've struthed the roll, you've done really well, which means in addition to some other stuff that happens, you're going to increase that trait 1 degree toward the serious side. So you're going to be rolling a bigger die the next time you test that trait. On the other hand, if you ever spam a roll, which is to say you roll a natural 1, then in addition to some other bad things that happen, you have to move that trait 1 degree toward the silly side. And so the next time you test that trait, you're going to be rolling a smaller die. So each of the traits have that kind of serious and silly side, and it exists on a continuum, a dice continuum or a spectrum. So you're constantly moving up and down along those things. And the head of line entertainment, the person who's running the game, is referred to as the head of line entertainment, and that person is not your typical kind of impartial judge and referee, as would be the case in most role-playing games. The head of line entertainment, the person running it, is meant to take on one of 18 different personae, and you roll at the beginning of every session to determine which of these personae you'll be taking on as the head of line entertainment. And each of these sort of personalities has their own likes and dislikes, and depending on how the players comport themselves, they'll be earning merits if they do things that this personality likes, or demerits if they do things that this personality doesn't. And if you accrue enough demerits, then something really bad happens in the form of a roll on a D30 chart and a D30 table, and it's called a beshrew. And these beshrewments are very random and very strange, and they're tailored to each of the 18 head of light entertainment personae. So if Dino Vercati, who's a character from Flying Circus, he's this kind of East End Sicilian gangster type, if he's your head of light entertainment persona that you're portraying, and a beshrew is triggered, it might be anything like the cops rush the scene because Dino's a gangster, and so they're after him, and they rush into the middle of the medieval scene that you're reenacting, or the Pope might tune in, or a giant foot might come down and squash you, or all kinds of surrealistic and farcical and anachronistic things begin to sort of intrude on the game, which is set. The game is in medieval England, but through beshrewments and some other mechanics, there are a lot of ways that all those strange Python-esque surrealistic elements begin to kind of intrude on that setting and make it feel more Python-esque, I guess.
Okay. Yeah, you are definitely making me want to go and see a flying circus. Not just the movies, is on Netflix now. Oh my god, there's so much stuff I need to get caught up on. You can only glean so much from an internet meme.
Yeah, you're really I'm envious of you, because there is Python content that you haven't seen, which means you get to still experience it for the first time, and that's I'm jealous. I wish there was still some unopened stuff that I could experience for the first time, even though I still enjoy rewatching and rereading the books and re-listening to the albums. But the fact that there's Flying Circus stuff you haven't seen, and there's probably a film or two that you maybe haven't seen, and then there are the books and the albums. There's a lot of Python out there for you if you're interested.
I didn't know there was a book. I thought maybe if there was a book, it'd be like their documentary or origin story. But yeah, that's probably going to be easier to find and not extremely inflated in price.
Yeah, they published 2 books. One is called Monty Python's Big Red Book, which the cover of which is blue, in Python-esque fashion. Another one is called Monty Python's brand new paperback, and they published them together at one point under a different title, but you can get them individually or together, and they're hilarious.
Oh, I have so much not research I'm gonna be doing. Um, okay. So for the uninitiated, I'm not saying any price is wrong. I'm not saying any price is right, because again, tabletop RPGs are a foreign concept, but it's a noble hobby. But how much, as far as is your gonna retail for?
Um, yeah, the book is I think retails for $50, and but there's a whole kind of product line. There are custom dice. There are coconut dice rollers, merit and demerit tokens. There's a head of light entertainment, a GM screen that comes with the 18 interchangeable heads that you can put into the screen to kind of show which persona you're representing. There's also this a game set, like a board game set called Fetch a Lavash, and it's kind of a 3-in-1 supplemental board game. It's based on the game of backgammon, so it fits into the role playing game, and that if you're captured by the French at any point, they will force you to compete in this kind of gladiatorial event called Fetch a Lavash, where you have to race to one side of this field and capture a cow and take it off alive, all while the French are launching farm animals and insults at you. And it's played on a backgammon board, so you can play it. You can download the rules and play it on your own backgammon board. But we also made a whole backgammon set that is custom designed for this, and it comes with dice catapults and meeples that you move around and attempt to knock over with the dice you're launching, and a wall that goes in between the two sides of the board. And then you can flip that board over and play a different game called Squash et l'Anglaise, which is kind of a tower defense sort of tower storming, castle storming game that involves launching dice and knocking over meeples. And it's also a fully functioning backgammon board, so you can just play backgammon on it if you want. So there's a lot of there's a whole sort of line of products around this, and I think you can get the whole bundle for like $120, I think. But you can also just do a kind of a la carte where you just buy the book and then get the dice, or buy the book and just get the dice catapults or the coconuts, or whichever bits and bobs you need.
I am most definitely, yeah, I am definitely gonna go through that website and throw some images up of this stuff, because that sounds very interesting, let alone hilarious. Um, all right, so I mean, it goes without saying, there's no such thing as too much Monty. Uh, so are there any plans currently, or maybe in the future, for expansions or expansion sets relating to this game?
Yeah, definitely. My brother and I wrote, I think we have at least 80,000 words of content that didn't make it into the book. Just additional quests and creatures and NPCs. And so we have tons and tons and tons of content that we would love to publish. I think the first supplement that would be published would be a book of quests that would just have 10 quests come in the book already. And but we would, first expansion would probably be just a book of quests with an more of them, kind of adventure modules basically. And yeah, hopefully that will be the first of many. I mean, a lot of it depends on how this thing is received once it hits retail. If people like it, if it's reviewed well, if it sells well, then if it's clear that there's a demand for more stuff, then I mean, nothing would make me happier than to continue making stuff in this world. But it has to. We have to be able to show that there is in fact a market for it. So hoping for the best come March 5th.
The day after my birthday. Ain't that just coincidental? Um, okay, so yeah, well, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't know what I was going to be getting because I ain't gonna lie, I'm not a tabletop person. Like I said, I just respect it because they do so much. Despite being practically imaginary, they're one of the most expensive types of games you can get over time. But I'm glad that it does have a thriving market, especially in an age where everyone and their mom wants to claim that, oh, everything has to be digital. Nothing is going to thrive or sell if it's in traditional formats, which I've always thought was BS, even when I was 5. But yeah, I look forward to indirectly or I guess directly promoting your material. And one last time, can you tell them where they can go to buy the game or I guess pre-order the game real quick?
Yeah, so you can pre-order the game at MontyPythonRPG.com, and that will take you to the website that Exalted Funeral, the publisher, maintains. You can also just go to Exalted Funeral if you already shop there. But come March 5th, it will be on shelves, both digital and it'll be on Amazon and I think BNN.com and then in hobby stores, and I think it will be in some big box and mainstream retail. I'm not sure exactly where all it will be available. It should be pretty easy to pick up after March 5th.
Yeah, definitely recommend, if possible, trying to see if you can get into BAM or Books a Million. That sounds like, no pun intended, the holy grail of locations to find Monty Python fans currently. Um, but yeah, I definitely appreciate this. And if you guys make an expansion or you work on anything else, do not hesitate to darken our doorstep. If there's one thing we love over here at Token Podcast, it's returning customers. We just had Matthew Lesko last month, but to be fair, it's Matthew Lesko. If there ever was a man who's busy and time is limited, it's him. So when we can get someone who's always doing something creative, that would be great. And 80,000 lines, man, I can't imagine how many weeks or months or years you and your brother spent on crafting this, but I genuinely do hope that it pays off for you. Pun intended that time. Pun intended.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate the time, Zach, and the good questions, and I hope that I hope you enjoy this if it comes across your desk at some point. But yeah, happy to talk about this again or future projects down the road.
Yeah, and I wouldn't mind trying to get you and your brother as a dynamic duo in on something you do later down the line too. This is one of those situations where the more people who can influence the episode, the more entertaining it is for everyone involved. With that being said, I'll bring this episode to a conclusion, and I will see you guys in the next one.